Hello and welcome back to the Power Podcast. It has been a hot minute since we've last done one of these. Sorry, the last recording messed up something fierce, so we're going to record this one yet again. So, welcoming back Alex and Sam. Sam and Alex, and Sam with Alex.
Hello.
Professionals, you know.
Hello.
Professionals.
This week, we're going to be talking about aerokinesis. As anyone may or may not know, aerokinesis is the ability to telekinetically manipulate the air currents, gas, or just wind. Basically, it's air manipulation. There we go. There you go. That's done.
I don't know, man.
I'm going to say that. It's more precise than last time.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, you could say it just, we kind of lost it to the winds.
Oh, I was waiting for the crickets, but it seems as though they've died from that terrible joke as well. Yeah. Anyway, so, yes, I'm going to now talk about the most obvious and common ones, the manipulation of air. Well, sometimes they can make themselves run fast. They can have aerobatic capabilities, which basically allows them to manipulate the air currents, basically making them theoretically lighter, or even just be lighter in general. And obviously, just creating huge, great blasts of wind that can either be the equivalent of, like, you know, just really strong gale winds, or as basic and meek and meager as pretty much just like a gentle breeze. Those are the sort of basic stuff. They can go all the way from there to, like, anything as ridiculous as creating storms and tornadoes and great hurricanes. But yeah, are there any other specific abilities that you guys can think of? And I think we should rattle these off pretty damn quickly since we've done it before.
Well, there's the classic air pressure manipulation where we talked about. We did mention last week that I remembered someone had the power to manipulate the air currents to actually make electricity because it's to do with air pressure. It's to do with like hot air and cold air, and when they come together, they get hyperfriction and cause electricity to happen. They're very brief. That's what I know about science.
Yes, as I said last time, Kane was speaking to me about this and said there's theoretically two people that can also cause storms. There's the fire users, because if fire is up in the air, it can basically generate enough heat to alter the atmospheric pressure, and then also the same with wind, because technically if you can control air pressure enough, you might be able to manipulate or alter the current of lightning. But no aerokinetics, or at least very little aerokinetics I've ever seen have that ability. What about you, Alex? Any common abilities?
Well, the creation of vacuums, like, as well as manipulating air to, like, go forwards and to propel and to, you know, you can also use it to retract as well. So, like, the really cool airbender in Legend of Korra, best show, you know, managed to completely take out the air out of someone's lungs and kill them.
Vacuum
and also
control.
Just, like, yeah, vacuum control. That's cool. That's a deadly ability, but also, you know, generally kind of interesting because normally you would think of, like, oh, you're controlling the winds and it's like an active thing, whereas, like, it's basically sucking the activity out of the atmosphere.
Yeah, I mean, literally controlling the air within another person is actually quite incredible. There was one particular one that was absolutely nuts, which was someone, I cannot remember what it was from, but someone could actually manipulate the air within, or the oxygen within someone's blood, and the air directly in their lungs, and they could actually, like, pretty much just cause them to, like, feel incredible pain. It's like, oh yeah, I can't rip it out of you, but I can basically cause you to feel like as if you're having an asthma attack, where, like, you either can't breathe in or you can't breathe out. Oh, and I can also make oxygen build up in certain places in your body, causing you a great deal of pain, and if I can get it to your heart, I can kill you. But it took them a long time to do so, and the fact is that, like, unless if someone doesn't stop them, they can pretty much be guaranteed to do that. But if someone does stop them, it pretty much reverses itself pretty quickly. It does cause a great deal of agony to the target, but it doesn't seem that bad.
Actually, this is one thing I learned over the pandemic. Like, you could essentially disable someone for a long
oxygen
period
deprivation.
Of time.
Yeah.
Yeah, because my dad's actually got an oximeter, so it might not. You know, that's the thing. It's almost completely undetectable. Like, you don't really until you get to a level where you are basically falling unconscious, like you're at a dangerous level. You don't really notice it. You know how low it actually is. That's why you have an oximeter. It's to like show it's like oh that's falling. Oh that's dangerous. I should get to a doctor right away before I freaking die. So again, another good deadly assassin ability. I bizarrely, you wouldn't think it from Aerokinesis because it's kind of like seemingly the passive, well, it's stereotyped as the pacifist ability, but yeah,
It is,
do a
yeah.
lot of damage with it.
I mean, if Westerns have taught me nothing, tuberculosis is also a killer. So all you need to do is just put down to someone's lungs with air.
I mean, yeah.
Make loads of cuts.
Okay,
Make loads of cuts in the lungs.
Well, yeah, well, that or just obviously another particular one. If you want to really be like that, is obviously just have it where someone sneezes in front of you. You know that they've got a cold. Bend the air around that specific amount of particulate. Yeet it into someone's face, and bam! There you go. Have a cold. So I mean, yeah, that's pretty damn cool.
At my work, I'd love to do that.
I think we all would, mate. I think we all would.
The number of maskless freaks in my work.
The main thing is that when we come down to it, I'm not going to talk about the smallest versions anymore. We're going to talk about unique versions, because I think we did this last time with Kane, like Kane and Alex, where we had it where we just talked about unique power, like variants of these abilities, like of our own or something that we saw. Either we're making it up or we found it somewhere. So I didn't know if you guys wanted to go first or if you wanted to let me go first, but if there was any unique variants of a type of air or wind manipulation or aerokinesis.
You know what? I brought it up last time. I know it was lost forever, but I'm just saying.
Oh no.
I'm just saying, like the ability to manipulate the air within your own body.
Flatshokinesis.
Flatshow, see, it has a name, and it's
no, I just made that up, but that's probably the name of it.
You know what?
Flatshokinesis.
It was worth losing last week's footage just for that.
You know what? Yeah, you know what? Yes.
What, for me coming up with that, or even just thinking of it?
Flatshokinesis.
For the word flatshokinesis.
Add that to the list of powers, the 65th power, the greatest power of them all.
Good God, no.
Next time in the Animate Kills game, Alex develops flatshokinesis.
You know what, Alex? If you play as a character with a flatshokinesis, I will state the words, and you use your flatshokinesis to blank. I don't know exactly what you'd be doing, but I will at least say.
So many perks in mind right now. I mean, I've got silent but deadly.
Anyway, so Sam, do you have any ones before I go on to my one?
I mean, besides the great flatshokinesis, remember what was the one I said last week?
Well, could you come up with one or remember a unique type now?
Well, I mean, give me a second, and
I remember what my one was, and also is.
You say yours first, then I'll remember. I'll try and think of one.
Fair enough. So mine was actually specific gas molecular manipulation, or specific gas particle manipulation, which basically allowed the user to manipulate only one specific gas type at a time, but could control how much power built up within that amount of gas, and how much power that they could use from it. The specific one that I stated was actually, the name of his ability was called Particulate Manipulate, or Manipulate Particulate, which was pretty much the idea of the guy could have a fizzy can or a soda can, or basically some kind of like carbonated drink, and they could basically build up pressure and power within that can, yeet it, and the second that it touched anything, it would then explode like a live grenade with the amount of power that it had behind it. Later on, the user would then discover, after drinking, the ability to store up that power or that gas within inside of their body, and actually then be able to emit it from any part of their own body, basically out of their own skin or anywhere else, basically firing out weaponry. Later on, I joked about the idea of having it where the user would be able to then suddenly they'd be holding a friend's helium balloon, and then be I wonder if this works, and then suddenly they start floating, only for the balloon to then suddenly pop, because although that they're controlling the amount of power or the lightness, or the strength of helium's pull as it tries to go up and up and up and up above oxygen, the balloon bursts because it's trying to carry the entire weight of a human being on a string and a piece of rubber that is stretched around a ball of condensed helium. So basically, the idea was having all this, and the only reason why this guy has no understanding of how his powers work for such a long time is because the normal gas that we breathe in is not purely oxygen, it's not purely nitrogen, and it's not purely anything. It is a culmination of multiple gases. Because of this, he's been going around for such a long time without the ability of using his powers until he discovered fizzy drinks, and until he actually, once he discovered this, started finding objects that held one specific gas type, which obviously would allow him to then use this particular ability in any which way that he wanted, so long as he had some kind of object that stored said specific gas up.
I remember what mine was now.
Good.
I remember what mine was. It was the ability to kind of rearrange the way, more or less, to make sure you can't sense So I think it was just sound and smell. I know maybe you could do it with light, because I know light is photons and they're massless particles, but they are also of wave duality. So I'm not certain if you could do that with air.
Technically, if the air could be if there's enough photons or enough heat in the air, thanks to the amount of the density of photons potentially.
Yeah, but so more or less, it was the ability to subtly alter the air currents so that the people around you cannot hear or smell or possibly see. It'd have to be probably very specialized for that.
Yeah, I think in the terms of C, you'd have to pull out some BS levels of JoJo's logic, where it's I manipulate the air around me so well that the water particulate in the air starts refracting light around me, therefore, I seem almost invisible.
Yeah, so all you're doing is moving it slightly to the side. That's all you're doing.
That's so dumb, though. That's not how that works.
I mean, neither do any superpowers make sense.
Okay,
let's
fine.
Be fair here.
But
this isn't a superpower universe where people can casually control the air currents.
Air doesn't specifically bend light, is all I'm saying.
Suspension of disbelief.
That's suspending it too far, Sam.
No, it's not. Is it though? Is it?
Yes, it is.
Is it?
I'll tell you what. I'll meet you halfway. Only if it actually has some levels of atmospheric water particles, and the strength of the wind around you is enough to basically rotate all of those particles around you at such high speeds that it could do so. Because tornadoes always seem white, but it's because of the moisture in the air.
I mean, maybe I'm trying. To be honest, I was looking
as well as debris
information. I know you can trap light in a crystal. Maybe something like that. Maybe the physical elements of the air. I don't know. But all I'm saying is that would be the power. Whether that would actually
that doesn't sound like aerokinesis though. That's at that point you're just going, I want to crystallize light. That's not aerokinesis.
Okay, no. Again, light was never the first option. It was mostly smells and sounds.
That makes sense.
Yes.
Potentially refracting light because you're able to maneuver atmosphere around you. That potentially might make sense. But I don't know.
But that was the vague gist of what I intended.
And now time for the most overpowered versions of them, which, to be honest, we didn't get to last time, so I guess we'll just go to right now. Well, obviously, when it comes down to it, you've got a ton of different ones, like the ability to manipulate gas within a person, or gas with here, there, or everywhere. It's obvious that you could just basically say, I can control and manipulate all air from any location, in any direction. In fact, I could basically turn the entire planet into a vacuum or something. I'd actually have to say, what would actually be kind of interesting is having an ability where instead the user has. I'm gonna actually call this out now. I'm gonna actually have like wind dominance physiology or embodiment, where basically the user is almost like the living incarnation of wind currents. Meaning that, yeah, they have basic manipulation of air currents and stuff like that, but any kind of aerokinetic attacks or manipulation to do with air on this particular power user is completely immune. Meaning that they're immune to being suffocated, they're immune to being damaged by wind. Basically, like a tornado, they could just basically walk through it and it would dissipate because the wind is specifically not allowed to hurt the user or something, or it just physically can't. Like, the user doesn't have to be the most overpowered, but like basically a specific ability that almost neutralizes or even allows the user to use other aerokinetics ammunition against them, sort of thing. So it's almost like that their power is only so powerful because the user against them cannot fight against them. It's kind of almost like nullification physiology, but without any other power. Without them being immune to any other power, just Aerokinesis. I went for the really boring one this time.
Yeah, give us some time to shine. Joe, upstaging us all the time with your good ideas and stuff.
I mean, what can I say, guys? I put on the best shows. I couldn't even say that with a straight face. What have you guys got?
No, well, obviously there's the biggest one that's like full storm control. Like basically, you have like so much code. You can control an entire atmosphere.
Yeah.
Yeah, basically, it's like it's sort of like just go big or go home. You know, you can create tornadoes. You can change the weather to disrupt clouds so that they don't rain or they do rain. You can you can basically cover like massive distances. Like you could just create a tornado in another state and no one will know it was you, but you just thought about it. It's the perfect crime.
The perfect crime. What about you, Sam?
Just imagining the butterfly thing. You flip your eyebrows and in Nebraska, a tornado happens in England.
Dead.
Butterfly effect Aerokinesis, where it's just like the smallest movement basically allows you to create the greatest amount of like power, but it has to be on the other side of the planet because it creates that it's a gradual effect. So so in other words, if you wanted to destroy New Orleans, you actually had to be on the other side of the planet, perfectly away from New Orleans, and just be like, okay, so according to my atlas and according to my specific GPS calculator, I am exactly this amount of meters, miles, kilometers, and exact at the exact point.
New England again.
Gosh damn it! I wasn't trying to hit Boston. All right, moving along.
God damn it! Now I'll have to move again.
God damn sneezes.
I think one of the coolest things to me, like this has nothing to do with Aerokinesis.
I should say that wasn't my power. No.
I was just going to say the thing that interested me most about like ridiculously over the top powers is like the minimal effort ones are really cool, especially like this isn't anything to do with Aerokinesis, but like in Dragon Ball Super, there's just the moment where the guy taps the table and blows up half a planet. That to me is why that just obviously that joke there about the whole like moves a finger and basically a butterfly effect happens and it destroys something on the other side of the planet due to hurricanes. That is hilarious because it's just like minimal effort powers are so interesting because visually they are so badass. Sorry, Sam, go on.
Okay, lost train of the thought now.
Oh, that's okay. I've got another one. No.
Oh no. Crap, now I have lost my train of thought.
Oh no.
Oh no. I'm just gonna go for the classic make like solidify air, so you make a gigantic mech out of it.
Can't solidify air, can you?
She can.
Yeah, pressure, air pressure. Like if you can condense air pressure, you can basically fire it out. But if you actually can
it's the same way you can make
consistent tunnel of air around something, it basically means that it can be almost as solid as like iron.
Same way you can make force fields out of light.
So
It's
you'd
not
be
so
like,
odd.
you'd
You
be
just
a
make a
hovering
giant.
mech.
I mean,
You just make-
literally, you
just
can make like there are all sorts of different characters and all sorts of different universes that can manipulate air in certain ways like that.
Actually, I should say they actually did it. They did that in Ben 10. They had this like weather machine that made a mech out of a tornado.
There was one character who had
Joe will also be annoyed because I don't want that to be any way regarded to my good example of Ben 10.
no, I was gonna say how was it? It's from Seven Deadly Sins, and there's
almost as bad.
There's a character who has the ability of like basically superpowered tornado manipulation, and there's a moment where someone tries to grab them, like hold them, basically like kill them by bear hugging them. And what happens is that like all they grab is basically a condensed sphere of tornadoes, so powerful that as the air pressure is spinning, it's actually tearing apart this guy's flesh who's trying to hold him. So yeah, that kind of like air is dangerous. So technically, yes, you could create, as you said, like a storm mech or like pressure armor or something like that. It's telekinetic skin is one specific thing, but yeah, aerokinetic skin is also another possibility, which is crazy. Like atmospheric suit, which was used in the most recent JoJo's, which was amazing. Sorry, continue.
I'm just thinking as well, with Flatchokinesis, I'll just say with like Flatchokinetic skin, that you would be unstoppable. I mean, the stench alone would just.
I mean, yeah, but surely wouldn't you pass out from it? If you're,
Well, not
if
necessarily
you're
if you're
creating a
using your own
bubble of
attack.
your own flatulence, wouldn't you just like pass out eventually? This is
no,
such a
but-
dumb conversation.
So, like most people, don't you like the smell of your own stank?
Not
Anyway,
massively.
But anyway, but no, yeah, I like the idea of just becoming a giant megazord made of air, and then there's just you in the middle.
Thundercloud man, go!
Especially because you could just do like multiple arms of wind, like tentacles of wind coming out and attacking people.
Especially if you could also like do it in an actual thundercloud, and you create like a condensed bubble of like like air pressure. It means that like the lightning wouldn't fire off at you; it would fire off away from you. Meaning that you could literally just be in a bubble, controlling the pressure of an entire cloud, making it look like some like storm octopus as it just like goes around, just firing lightning off.
I'm just imagining this person. I'm just imagining this person like flying upwards, like being like beaten down. Like, you thought you beat me? Fly up towards the thundercloud. There's the thundercloud begins to spin and spin and spin.
Go
in the
Thunder
air.
Thulu!
And then suddenly, BAM! Cthulhu. Of
Oh no,
the
guys,
cloud
we
of
need the
thunder.
Thunderzord. Go,
Thought you
go,
could beat
Thunder
me.
Rangers!
You were wrong. Yeah, I also just realized best part is that the thunder, the horrible monster I'm thinking of, the weather monster is called Sam.
Perfect.
Not even really, I just found that out. It's called like SAM.
Brilliant.
Love it. I'm happy now.
I love that sort of stuff. Like the thing is, air pressure based. Like, I think air is also one of the most malleable abilities because also not only is it an invisible style of an attack in most situations, not all situations, but most situations, like it's almost invisible, and it can be so powerful, so deadly, so passive. Like it is so like it's not just attack and defense; it's also brilliant utility. You can use it for a multitude of different reasons and in a multitude of different ways. Damn it. So, the Sam. Oh, yes, the Sam. Yeah, I remember that.
I can't remember what Sam means, but I just remember that's what it was in that episode.
Do any of you ever think of this? Like, so obviously, like, aerokinesis can also grant the users, like, aerokinetic flight, floating, weightlessness, feather falling, stuff like that. But, like, aerokinesis is so powerful. My question to you is, like, what power would be really well balanced or really ridiculously well placed with aerokinesis? Like, if you think of an overpowered anomaly, like with any powers, like what power would be really good to match with the ability of airbending or air manipulation or aerokinesis?
I mean, for me, it's got to be chemistry manipulation.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's an obvious one because you get to like create different gases and like, basically, you can control, any type of gas. It would just give you extra power on that front. I mean, chemistry manipulation is pretty good paired with any of the elemental powers, in my opinion. But especially air, because you can pretty much fire projectiles of anything you make with the pressure of wind, regardless of what you can make.
Oh yeah.
So I would say that that's like the best pairing out of the elemental powers with chemistry manipulation.
Could you say that any less like as if you're like a royal? I do believe that there's no greater pair than the elemental abilities of chemistry manipulation.
No offense, but Alex is Twitter nobility.
Absolutely. I
The worst kind of nobility. It's like it's a rotten kingdom.
Sit on your throne of festering piles of comments as I sit here in my, I think, 60 followers. So, okay, so you think chemistry. Well, I say you think, like as if there's a good or bad or wrong or right answer. No, that is a good answer. You say chemistry. There we go. Okay, Sam, what about you?
Hey, there are wrong answers, and I'm going to give you them.
Okay.
Well, I've got a couple. Intangibility would allow you to more or less become an air mimic.
To be fair, Sam, I think you're wrong. I think actually that's a really good mix.
Yeah, of course. I mean, I was doing the joke.
Good.
I'm becoming like Joe now with my bad inflections.
Good.
Okay, well there is, of course, sound manipulation, so
Sound
you
is
can
really
make it
good,
go
yeah.
far even further and be
absolutely.
much more dangerous. And water can hydrokinesis, so then you could control the clouds and become weatherman, because literally everything in weather is either water or air.
I mean,
so
not
you could
to
make tornadoes.
not to
and
be funny as well.
bolts.
Like, also, it depends on the power. Like we were talking about this last time when we were talking about hydrokinesis. It also depends on the level of power as well, because you can either have the ability to manipulate everything to do with water in the forms of like solids, liquids, and gases, and steam, water, and ice, and that paired off with aerokinesis is ridiculous. But also blood bending or liquid manipulation. Imagine the ability of being able to not only suffocate someone but also make their blood start peeling out of their skin. Like,
But that's
you are just
small
unstoppable.
potatoes. That's small potatoes when you can make tornadoes and lightning bolt people from afar.
I mean, yes,
That's what
but
I'm talking
like,
about here.
aero and electrokinesis are really good for that, because both of them increase your speed and prowess when it comes to stuff like that. Hydrokinesis is also really good for that. I definitely agree with you. I'm not saying that that's a bad answer. I'm just saying that like it just the amount of flexibility is all I'm saying, is that it's interesting that you chose those two, because the amount of flexibility of those two powers, especially combined, is insane.
And there's plenty more. Pretty much any power of aerokinesis is good, because it's like flight, but without having to be only flying, because you can fly with that.
I mean, also, if you actually did have flight, you wouldn't ever have to worry about using anything alone. Is that thing of like, you could be purely like defense based as well. You could just be like, yeah, I'm going to fly up about 60 meters, create an air dome around me, now try and hit me now. And it's like, even if they do hit you, they have to break through the air barrier first. And then it's like, yeah, right, now that I've knackered everyone out, it's now my turn to just flatten them all with a bunch of like aerokinetic attacks. I'd actually say that there is a really good combo that I don't think either of you actually spoke about yet, which I'm actually quite interested to hear your sort of opinions on this. So, it's like I actually am. I'm a little upset that you used chemistry, because that was going to be my ace in the hole. Because obviously the ability to manipulate and control gases alone, like being able to transmute them, is great. Like, I'm going to transmute like an entire area of poison gas, control it, and just yeet it at someone. Like, or even create a whole tornado made out of like, I don't know, let's say for instance, like made out of poisonous buthol or something like that. Like any kind of weird gas, you could basically make a storm out of it. But I'd actually have to say, like, obviously pyrokinesis and aerokinesis would be really good, because obviously you can, generate fire, make the fire bigger, or put out fires, depending on how you really work it. However, I do think that a power that everyone sort of like skipped over, which is actually rather interesting, is nobody said super dexterity.
Oh.
The
No,
two powers
that.
based on skill and speed, like even speedster physiology as well. Like, having the ability to run as fast as the wind and effing well mean it. Being able to move with pure precise movements and speed and swiftness, or even just genuinely having it where, like, not only are you perfectly the most acrobatic being alive, every time that you move, you also create, like, a massive torrent of wind. So it's like, oh, I'm just going to dodge and just, like, ever so quickly slap you in the face. But it now has the power of a gale force behind it. So it's like, not only are you getting hit in the face with a pretty quick strike, like a whip, but now here comes an entire, like, sonic boom of a hurricane that just hits you in the face as well. Like, also having the ability of floating around, and it's like, oh no, like, however you're going to get out of this situation, not only do you have the ability to, like, cling to walls, roll, run up alongside them, or even, like, if you have flow motion, jump off of the air itself, you also have the ability to solidify or control the air, enabling it to be a lot easier to run on the air itself, which basically means you can do a ton of really crazy stuff that makes you seem almost like as if you're, like, breaking through reality in so many weird ways.
We just realised what would be the far better one to super dexterity with that. Be spider physiology. That not only do you have the super dexterity, but you can also just shoot webs and make them seemingly fly around a target like a lasso.
That is
without having to actually do anything.
You could fly using a single like little parachute of silk, and then just keep making your aerokinetic ability so that you could keep flying on this little umbrella or this little like silken speed.
No, do the Spider-Man thing. Do the Spider-Man thing. Just give yourself like wings made of web underneath your arms.
Yeah.
Just be like paraglide everywhere, just fly like that.
See that's a really interesting idea. That's really impressive. I will say though, there was another one.
So many.
The ability of overflowing strength from super strength, any kind of super strength, but like even if you don't have overflowing strength, which is basically the power where, as you know, you're so strong that when you throw a punch or kick or even a flick, you create massive air pressure just from the sheer force of your own power. And imagine being able to do that, and then it's like, oh yeah, I'll also have it that when I throw this flick, not only am I like creating a hurricane, it's now being increased, like literally multiplying a hurricane by a hurricane. Yeah, there are a lot of amazing ones. They're all crazy.
Of course, ranged weapon physiology. So you just get a gun that shoots tornadoes
out,
at people.
like, yeah.
Or more or less you become like the Shocker. You just like...
Yeah, just like blasting impact shots and stuff. See, amazing. Just amazing.
Man, it's like the salt to any food. Add Aerokinesis to anything and it would work.
It pretty much is, yeah. I mean, I don't think there's too many limits to the power. The obvious weaknesses are, well, obvious. If there's not enough capability for a person to use or manipulate wind, then that can be an issue. But considering that air is almost like 100% everywhere.
Like, let's be honest. You have worse things to fear if there's no air around you.
Well, yeah. In the terms of it, if you're an aerokinetic and you're in a place where you don't have your element to manipulate, there's a few more issues that you have other than, oh no, I can't manipulate air. You're probably thinking, oh no, my brain is being starved of the one thing that it needs. Or even,
oh no, I'm drowning.
Yeah. Oh no. Why can't I feel my lungs filling with air? Oh, that's right, because they're filling with something else, like water or blood or I don't know, dirt, because you're being buried alive. So yeah, I mean either that or even holy cow, I'm in space. I mean those are some pretty severe situations that you might have been put in, and at that point, I'm pretty sure like. It's the same thing with the nullification argument. If you are put in a place where you are outside of a zone where you can't survive, Like, it's the equivalent of if I was to say, like, oh man, like a cryokinetic in a place where they're on fire. Like, yeah, but if you're in a place where you're on fire, unless if you have an immunity to fire, your biggest concern is, oh man, there's no ice. Your biggest concern is, I'm on fire, help me. Like,
you've got bigger things to fear.
Yeah, you got
being able to use your power.
It's the same thing as like whenever we used to talk about like, oh man, like X character would be really powerful if they had this and that, and then someone would be like, yeah, but this character wouldn't be all that powerful if they didn't have their sword. And it's like, but they're a swordsman. Like, that's the equivalent of saying that this character without their powers. It's like, yeah, or this character without their arms. And it's like, okay, at this point, you're basically just saying, this character, if he wasn't alive, like, you know, oh man, Cover would be really strong if it weren't for the fact that he was a puddle right now.
Hey, to be fair, Cover was never powerful.
He was.
No, he had charisma for days. He was not powerful. There's a reason he didn't fight anyone except that one time.
Oh man, the one time.
Yeah, and even best part is he intimidated his way out of it.
Pretty much, yeah. It's
and also that's the reason why agents only use their fists. They won't have to rely on some sword like Fletcher or any of the other weaklings.
I mean, to be fair, I think only one... Yeah, in the terms of the current campaign, in the tournament campaign, by the way, definitely check that out if you haven't seen it, the Crucible of Avarice campaign that we're currently streaming on Twitch, and it is also placed on our YouTube channel.
Little advertisement.
Gotta plug that hole as many times as you can.
Raising!
You know, holes in the boat, because we don't want to sink. So...
We don't want to get wet.
Yeah, we don't want to get...
Raising!
Yeah. So, no, you're absolutely right, because I think the only two people who actually do use weapons are Fletcher and Eraser. And technically...
sometimes as well, though, technically.
Yeah, but you don't rely solely on it. Like, Adrian... like, Sam was talking about the fact that Adrian doesn't rely on anything other than their own brute strength and their powers to increase their damage output. Whereas, like, Felix has hand-to-hand combat, but, like, obviously has more power behind it because of their powers. Rakia, obviously, nullified or not, is still going to be able to, you know, use a whip or use their arms as whips. But if... Say, for instance, if you take, for instance, Fletcher's staff, two parts of them are going to be at a great disadvantage. If you take Thingy's weapons away, Eraser's weapons away, it's not going to be that bad, because I think he's martial arts capable, I think. But yeah, it really depends. But yeah, that's we're getting a little off topic here now. I just realised, but like that's the thing about Aerokinesis is that like yeah, it's literally the same thing. It's like
it flows through the air.
Yeah, I mean, literally, if you take away the air, and you are a creature that requires air to live, it's just the same thing as I said with the cryokinetic thing. It's the same thing with any particular power. If your zone of power disadvantage or power nullification is also a zone that would just be killing you anyway, at that point you might as well say, so I kill them. It's the same thing where, like, if someone said, we bury Superman alive in Kryptonite, I'm pretty sure if you buried anyone else in Kryptonite, they'd also die, because if you got buried alive, you would be killed after a while. Plus, I think Kryptonite just has a radiation that can kill people with overexposure anyway.
And no offense, but that takes years. I know Lex Luthor got cancer because of it, but that was because of years of wearing a ring. Get the facts right, Joe.
Either way, it's still being buried alive. My point still stands, Sam.
Years and years.
No, if you're buried alive, you probably aren't going to survive years and years. Your concern is not the radiation poisoning, is all I'm saying.
Hey, just want to get out there. It's going to be a suffocation. Not radiation poisoning.
Fair enough. But like that still stands as the thing of if your weakness is a thing that can kill other people anyway, or kill you without actually doing anything to your powers, or kill you whilst it does something to your powers, then it's just like, well, yeah, obviously, as I said, like suffocation is a weakness to aerokinetics. I'm pretty sure suffocation is my weakness, and I'm definitely no aerokinetic. Like. It's you know, that's one of the coolest things about Aerokinesis. It's one of the only powers where it's like, if you don't have it, then it's what's that saying? Sex is like air. It's not important unless if you're not getting any. It's almost exactly the same as this saying, but this saying is perfect. It's like, it's a perfect version of that, where it's just like, remember, aerokinesis and needing to breathe have the exact same requirement. Air is both not important unless you're not getting any. It's like,
I mean, I prefer the sex line, as usual.
As usual, good old Sam. But it's a
Glad
weird
I don't
concept.
have a quote back.
I mean, I'm still filling it.
No, but Alex does have a quote back.
Don't tell people how I live.
No.
If you want to see the Alex quote book and it be in your stockings this winter, then check out the Alex quote book on www.alexquoting.com and pre-order yours today.
I mean, you really don't. You really, really don't.
There's just lots of stuff in there that will get me arrested.
Exactly, like one of the many great quotes, such as
no,
like Rosemary
okay,
Baby.
no,
We're not doing it. No.
Okay, right. I think we've definitely come to the end. The only one thing that I will actually say is also like something that is actually just an extra one. Smoking as well is also kind of an interesting one with aero or pyrokinesis, because it's like a pyrokinetic can actually light their own cigarettes and also control the flame that comes out of it. One particular one that I saw was that someone was sort of inhaling as sort of like the end was lighting up. The flames, like it sort of created a small amount of like flame on the end of it, and at the exact moment it's like, oh well, most pyrokinetics need to have a bit of flame, and then sort of like turns around, takes a big toke as it generates just enough heat to light up, as he then generates fire off of it, and just then throws a fireball at this guy. Later on, it's like his cigarette is almost running out. He takes a big toke, and then he uses the smoke, and he actually ignites the smoke to burn the guy. I can't remember where that was from, but that honestly, that was like, okay.
Is that from the X-Men? Isn't that like X-Men 2?
It might be from X-Men 2, but I'm pretty sure no one ever lights up a cigarette. Then uses the flame from the cigarette. I don't think there's a lighter.
No, Pyro does it to a guy who's mocking him, who is smoking. He's like taking the piss out of him, and he takes a drag just enough for it to like burn, and then he makes it pop, so it goes like explodes in this guy's face with fire.
It makes sense. It must be from there then, yeah. But if not, it might come from one of the comics, because it does sound right. But
Pyro is a bit of a dick. He does seem like a guy to do that.
But another one that I actually saw was actually like aerokinetic, where it's like they'd actually like take a puff and then immediately like exhale it and then basically create a smoke screen, of which by that point they have escaped, similar to like an escapologist or even like a quote-unquote magician who throws a smoke bomb and they immediately disappear. So it's just kind of interesting to do that kind of, that kind of thing where like aerokinesis can be used with it. One particular one that I actually saw was they had like a cigar on the go, but they used aerokinesis to keep like a small vacuum, so it kept on sucking up the smoke. And what would actually happen is that like it would seem as though they were taking pus, but it never got to their lungs. And the reason for this is because that like it turns out that in the cigars it was a hallucinogenic. So then they'd take what seemed like a huge toke, blow it in front of someone's face, and they'd start tripping the hell out, and they'd be like, "Oh my gosh! Like, how do you have like this much of an immunity to this insanely strong hallucinogen?" And it's just that thing of like, "What are you talking about? I don't." It's like I just use my powers to like make it control. And in all honesty, you know what that seems like? That seems like an Alfie character there.
Did Alfie? We miss you. Come wreck everyone's plans again.
In the most perfect ways.
Legion again. Be our time traveler from another world.
Be our time traveler from another world.
Lost in time, but not in our hearts.
Be the Dante that Dante never was. Well, I think that's about it. Thank you, everyone, for listening to this Power Podcast. This was Aerokinesis. Thanks again to Sam and Alex, known as Obscuricom, for joining me in yet another interesting story that we're doing. That was a terrible outro.
Close again.
Aha! I have yet again done it. Either way, if you would like to hear more of these Power podcasts, then please check out the link in the description below, which is nothing because you should already be on the website. I'm messing this up. If you would like to... If you would like to listen to more Power podcasts, then check out Animite Tales at YouTube, on YouTube. Yeah, at Animite Tales on YouTube. Professionals we are. It's been a while since I've done an outro, okay? It's been a while. I'll get used to it again.
Let's get to the part where you say goodbye to us.
No. If you'd like to speak to me or Alex on Twitter, I am at Animite Tales on Twitter, and Alex is at Obscuricom on Twitter. If you'd like to, find out more about the project, you can also look up our Patreon, which is, again, in the link on the description below, or is on our channel, which is, again, Animite Tales. Thank you, everyone, for listening. Have a wonderful night, and goodbye.
Bye!
See you in the future!
And as always, ciao ciao.